All right, welcome to episode 99 of Cameron's Sports Podcast. I'm your host here, Cameron Lindsay, back with a brand new episode. Today's episode is going to be a recap of the 2025 NHL Stanley Cup Finals between the defending champs, the Florida Panthers, and the Edmonton Oilers. Both these teams faced each other last year in the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals, so this was a rematch from last year's Stanley Cup. Now, when I made my predictions in episode 97, I mentioned Panthers won in 7 games last year against the Oilers. And really the Panthers were up like 3 games. I think 3 up, 3-1. Edmonton ended up winning like 3 straight, something like that. And then the Panthers won in game 7. Now this was the third year in a row that the Florida Panthers have reached the Stanley Cup. They lost to the Vegas Golden Knights the first year. Last year they beat Edmonton, and this year they made it to face Edmonton again. Like I also said in episode 97, this is the first time a team has reached the Stanley Cup Finals 3 straight years in a row since the Tampa Bay Lightning did it from 2020 to 2022. The Tampa Bay Lightning was trying to three-peat. They came up short against the Colorado Avalanche. The Panthers are looking to repeat, just like the Lightning did in 2020 and 2021. For the Panthers, how they reached the Stanley Cup Finals, again, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, they beat the Toronto Maple Leaf, and the Carolina Hurricanes. Edmonton, they're 0-2 in the Stanley Cup Finals in the last 25 years. This is, like I said, second year in a row they're facing the Florida Panthers. They beat the Kings, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Dallas Stars to reach the finals. Now, like I said, last year's 2024 Stanley Cup Finals was really good. But I've been saying during our whole Stanley Cup NHL playoffs, it's hard to go against the Florida Panthers. I've seen them a couple years ago beat a 60-win Boston Bruins team that set the record for most wins in this NHL. Beat them in the first round of the NHL playoffs. And like I said, that really shocked me because I thought Boston was going to be the heavy favorite that year to win the Stanley Cup. But that just shows you how good this Panthers team is the past 3-4 years. And like I said, that's why it was hard to really bet against them when the playoffs started. They were my favorite coming out of the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference, I think I had Dallas. I don't know if I said it on camera, but I had Dallas, but that they ended up coming short against Edmonton. But but this Stanley Cup, to be honest, was actually pretty entertaining, pretty good to watch. Game 1, the Oilers did win 4-3. It ended up being an overtime game. And one thing I learned with my internship a couple years ago with the Columbus River Dragons here in Columbus, Phoenix City area, playoff hockey is very, very entertaining, very good, especially if it goes to overtime. And like I said, it was a very competitive game. The Oilers set a statement going up 1-0. But I wasn't worried. I felt like the Panthers were going to respond in game 2. Even if the Panthers would have lost game 2, I seen them go down during this year's playoffs 2-0. I said, the Panthers may be in trouble. What they proceed to do, win 3 games straight. Then they ended up winning the game 7. Game 2, they beat the Oilers 5-4. That game was also overtime, but it was double overtime, not just one. So it took 2 overtimes for that game to end between the Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. Game 3, not really close. It was more of a blowout. The Panthers ended up winning 6-1, and they ended up going 2-1. Game 4, the Oilers ended up winning. Like I said, it was back to overtime game. They won 5-4 against the Panthers. So it ended up series ended up being tied 2 games apiece. Now this probably or you could say maybe the series shifted in the Panthers' favor. Game 5 ended up dominating the Oilers 5-2. And then Game 6, they closed it out against the Oilers, dominating them 5-1 in Game 6. again, like I said, the Florida Panthers are a very great organization. I may be a Seattle Kraken fan, but and getting more into hockey as I'm talking about on my show. But again, like I said, that's why I said, that's why I said it's hard to bet against them. And if you watch my NBA episodes, I picked OKC. I was right about that. Stanley Cup in hockey, I was right about that. I just don't miss most of the time. But like I said, I started thinking after the Panthers won back-to-back Stanley Cups, is can they three-peat? And it's very possible. Like I said, the Tampa Bay Lightning got close a couple years ago, but they fell short at the Colorado Avalanche. And I know I usually say I wouldn't bet against the Florida Panthers, but typically you probably would have to go with the field. If I had to bet the Panthers or the field, I'd probably lean just slightly towards the field, because you never know. Can the Panthers retain all their guys? Will they stay healthy? You got to factor in injuries. And plus each season is different in sports, especially professional sports. Look at the NBA. The NBA has had 7 different NBA champions the past 7 years. And not even the Boston Celtics, who beginning of the NBA season, we thought they was going to repeat. I kind of did. But injuries happened. Even before Tatum got hurt, the New York Knicks were dominating them. It looked like the better team. And now the Celtics look like they're going to have a rough season next year, with their best player most likely going to miss the whole season due to an Achilles injury. But like I said, hockey's a little different. That's why I say it's, in my opinion, it's different, because I don't think home field advantage matters that much like in basketball, football, because like I said, them going 100 miles per hour on ice, hitting each other, being physical, like it's completely different. And it's like, the fans can hit the glass. Like I said, I've been an intern before at the Columbus River Dragons, seeing fans hit the glass, yelling. I don't really think that affects the players on the ice. Like, the fans can't skate or move the puck for them. But I do give the Panthers a 50% chance to three-peat. That's a legit shot. I give, like I said, I did say lean towards the field. I say 49, like 51-49, like a 49% chance, if that makes sense, to three-peat next year. Because, they did re-sign one of their guys, so that's good. Like I said, they're a well-run organization. Like I said, I trust their coach, their players, their GM. So I give them a real good shot to three-peat next year. I think they should obviously be the favorite out of the East. I'm not really worried about them in the Eastern Conference. But, we'll see how the Western is. If Edmonton comes out the West for a third straight year, then I definitely will pick the Florida Panthers, because I just think the Panthers got the Oilers number at this point. If you lose to a team 2 straight years in a row in the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the World Series, they just got your number at that point. It's kind of like back in the 90s, early 90s, when the Cowboys played the Buffalo Bills multiple times in the Super Bowl and beat them both times, back-to-back years, as a matter of fact. Like, that team is just better than you. And that's why I think with the Panthers and Oilers, like me, I think it was an entertaining series, 6 games. We had, again, 3 overtime games during the Stanley Cup, Game 1, Game 2, and Game 4. All very entertaining games. I thought it possibly could go 7, but I did predict Panthers in 6. I thought it would be an entertaining 6. Some may disagree. I see some of the analysts, journalists on the NHL Network disagree, saying it wasn't a really entertaining series. But I think to be honest, I think it was. Like I said, again, if you have 3 overtime games in the Stanley Cup Finals, that's pretty entertaining right there. 3, and one of them was 2 It took 2 overtimes in Game 2, so you got to factor that in. But like I said, I give the Panthers a real legit shot. Hopefully, I'm wrong, And why I say that is because hopefully my Seattle Kraken have a real good year, and shock the world. But we don't, I don't know. It may take a couple of years. Like I said, I just became a fan of the Kraken this past season because I'm getting more into hockey, talking about it with y'all on my channel. The NHL draft just passed. I watched that. My Seattle Kraken got new head coaches. A lot of head coaches that got replaced. Like the Chicago Blackhawks got a new coach. The Philadelphia Flyers got a new head coach. A lot of a couple teams. I think did Boston? No, I think Boston. A couple teams got a new head coaches around the NHL. Like I said, but I give the Panthers a real legit shot. And if long as they make the playoffs, they really it don't matter. Like I said, I think NHL is just from what I learned from the Boston Bruins a couple years ago, winning 60 games may not be all that. Long as you get in the playoffs, especially in a sport like hockey or baseball, you can make a run. When my Atlanta Braves won the World Series a couple years ago, they weren't like with 90 plus win team. I think they had like 80 something maybe that year, and they won the World Series. I also seen teams that won 100 some games, like the New York Mets a few years back, and they lost in the first round. So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of not saying the regular season it shouldn't matter, but maybe learning to rest certain guys or move at a certain pace if that makes sense. Long as I get it. And one thing I will say, getting a top seed, being a home field advantage early in the playoffs, or first round bye like in the NFL or college football playoffs, first round bye, home field advantage, home court advantage, home ice advantage. That you do want that to play in front of your fans, to play there at home. So if you're the home team, you can rest at home. You can practice your facility. You don't have to worry about traveling right away. You could, so I get it. But at the same time, to just, maybe be a little careful, cautious a little bit about it. But yeah, like I said, on a scale of 1 through 10, I'll give this Stanley Cup Finals I'll give it a solid 7. Because it was pretty entertaining. Like I said, 3 overtime games, at least 6.57. It was pretty entertaining to me, especially as a journalist and a fan that's getting more into hockey, little by little. But yeah, I give the Panthers at least a 49% chance to three-peat and make history. Something the Tampa Bay Lightning fell short a couple years ago. But again, I definitely appreciate each one of y'all tuning in for this episode with your boy Cam. Again, if you want to see this channel grow, if you want to touch down with Cam, please hit that subscribe button. Get a friend, your uncle, auntie, cousins, wife, husband, anybody to subscribe to the channel so we can keep growing little by little. The ultimate goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers, 1 million, but that's gonna come. Rome wasn't built in a day. I understand that. I do this for the love of it. I do this because I believe I could talk with the best, debate with the best. I watch other shows on Instagram, YouTube, and I know I could debate. If I was sitting with them, I could debate with them just fine. I come with my notes ready. I watch the game. I know it. Especially when it comes to football, I definitely know it. But yeah, follow me on all social medias. I'm on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, you got my YouTube, Cameron Sports Podcast. We're on those platforms. Like I said, again, let's make hashtag touchdown with Cam a trending tag to where we can keep growing and be one of the best podcast shows that can rival Nightcap, and other, Podcast P, Pick a Side, all podcasts like that Pat McAfee show, excuse me, but we could rival those because I feel like I definitely can, And some things in my brain that I'm thinking of that I feel like slowly, like merch or a website, stuff that I feel like I can really grow my own brand into something big one day. So I definitely appreciate you when y'all tune in and always watch whenever you can. And yeah, let's keep growing. Let's keep, we're gonna touch down together. And again, shout out to, I also want to give one last shout out to Tim, a coworker who came up with the hashtag touchdown with Cam. Always be grateful for him. But I'll catch y'all next time for another episode. This has been your favorite host, Cameron Lindsay. And I'll be seeing y'all next time for another episode. Y'all take care.